We have the final talk of the session. We have Chuck Steidel from Caltech and Aaron Barth from UC Irvine giving the Keck SSC update.
Okay, thank you. This has to be really fast to summarize all the things that are going on for future capabilities for Keck. You've already probably heard something more detailed about all of these things, and the purpose of this is to summarize for you in one place the things that are going on that are on the drawing board at the moment. You already know about things that are already in the pipeline, a couple of instruments coming on very soon, like a year and a half or so. There's a new detector for low-res red, which is on schedule for sometime late this year or early next year, using a new monolithic detector. I think many of us are excited about that possibility, especially because the current detector appears to be close to death. But what I really want to spend most of the time on is telling you about all of the new ideas that are being pursued for future capabilities and instruments on Keck. And as you may know, every year, at least in the recent past, we've solicited white papers for concept studies, mini grants for small upgrades, and proposals to pursue what we call phase A, or proposal preparation activities, which applies to instruments that are farther along the design stage and they're ready to get money for construction funds. We had another record year. We had 13 white papers submitted, depending on exactly how you classify them. 5 were for concept studies, that is new concepts in the initial stages of study. 8 for phase A, or proposal preparation. And these were all received in June. And in mid-July, the SSC's job was to read these carefully, review them, and make recommendations to the board. And one of our jobs was to allocate or to recommend allocation of funds available for doing these studies. And it's not a huge amount of money, but as I'll say later, it really is highly leveraged by work that's done by these teams using money from all sorts of different places. We had about a factor of 2 oversubscription on the funds. And I'm just going to take you through these things very quickly, and hopefully I won't go over time in doing so. In the second year of conceptual design, we're funding the second year of study for the Phobos instrument, which is meant to be a massively multiplex spectroscopy, probably Keck 2, going all the way from the atmospheric cutoff to a micron. And that is continuing along to its preliminary design phase in early 2021. And the next step for Phobos would be to get a substantial amount of funds for the design development. So it's not quite ready for the construction phase. It's ready for serious design development starting early next year. High Spec, which is the single mode fiber fed high resolution near infrared spectrometer. You may have heard all about this through other channels. And essentially the SSC was recommending that it get ready for submission for construction funds. And this is another case where it's heavily leveraged by a collaboration, some freebies from various places, and other things to make it possible. So that will be going forward to apply for construction funds later this year, early next year. You've heard this today about Liger, and I won't try to fill in details in the 20 seconds I have to tell you about it, but the SSC is recommending that they stay on the path, which is to very shortly apply for money to build Liger. The design is very advanced and ready for obtaining full construction costs, if possible. There will be, at last, a DEMOS detector upgrade, or at least it's looking that way. As you may know, the DEMOS CCDs are showing signs of ill health, and they're all more than 20 years old at this point, and one can do quite a bit better, as shown in the in this diagram here. This is the factor by which throughput would be better with the new CCD array than at present. So it makes a big difference both in the blue and in the far red. And the SSC was recommending that this go forward to a funding proposal, and also, if possible, that the observatory front the money necessary to do a detector purchase, because the lead time is quite a long time and we want this to happen sooner rather than later so that we don't end up with nothing working with DEMOS. Low-res 2, you may have attended a breakout session or heard the talk yesterday. This is really a similar kind of thing where we're trying to replace a workhorse capability before it completely dies and leaves us stranded. And funds were recommended for initial studies of optomechanical constraints and what this would look like and what it needs to be able to do scientifically. There's technology development for adaptive secondary mirrors going on at UC Santa Cruz, and in collaboration with a company in the Netherlands. And this is geared toward future adaptive optics, particularly GLAO at Keck, and folds into other studies that have been done in the recent past for the future of wider field adaptive optics at Keck. There was a study, an initial sort of information collection last year to do with a high resolution, really mid-infrared, near to mid-infrared spectrograph to take advantage of these silicon immersion gratings that have been developed at UT Austin. And they're asked this year to really figure out what it is that would be just the right combination of capabilities to have Keck be to give Keck the most impact in the areas that such an instrument could work. You just heard about kwfi, so I don't have to tell you about that. There are some questions to be answered about how this would work in concert with other foci on the same telescope, but it looks very feasible. There is a rather outlandish idea to put a very bright laser guide star wherever you want it, behind whatever you're interested in, which would be a NASA mission. And there's more information available both at this meeting and at the website given there. And finally, a proposal that came out of the Adaptive Optics Study Group, which involves people both at the observatory and in the community, to think about strategically about adaptive optics in the future at Keck, and a proposal to go high order AO on Keck 2 with a 3000 actuator deformable mirror. The SSC liked the proposal, and it's relatively modest cost. It fits into a particular NSF program, and so it will go forward in the next round. So you can see that there's a lot of stuff on the table. And my summary, if anything, is that I guess I would say there's an abundance of good ideas. We don't have anywhere near the amount of money we would need in order to complete all of these instruments. And unfortunately, we don't have all that much control over the funding agency's decisions about whether or not to fund any of these things. We've been fairly successful up to this point, but realistically, we may have to make some hard, well, we've tried to take on some more control over the process by, as you may know, we're now allocating certain number of Keck observing nights to go in with proposals as a way to sweeten the pot to give community return on these proposals, which is needed for these large amounts of money that have to be requested. So I think the summary is that funding for major instruments is a serious challenge for all of us. And it's not lack of interested instrument groups or ideas, it's really lack of funds that is the limiting factor, maybe as always. Thanks, and take any questions.
Thanks, Chuck. That was definitely a heroic effort to fit all of that into a very short time slot for presentation. I don't see any burning questions in either the Slack channel or the Q&A box at the moment, so maybe we'll just move this discussion or any other discussions over to the Slack channel.